let's start. So I'll share the screen with you. Somebody should come in. I don't even know how I can see that they've come in. Chat. Let's see. No, I guess that doesn't help. Okay. Now I can see if somebody tries to come in. Okay, so we were talking last time about transferring from the vision inside us into opening the eyes and seeing the vision become a reality on the outside. And this was the fourth stage of conscious determination. So he said here, the eye of Jacob, confident and independent. And as we have seen, betach, confident, is an acronym for blessing, good in life. And absolute confidence in the good depends on the annihilation of Amalek, the root of doubt, which is Safek, which equals Amalek. So confidence takes us through the first three stages, and it also takes us through the last stage, which is opening the eyes. So really the confidence is in having a sense that what I saw in my vision will now become a reality outside. Confidence is what guides the eyes in being able to transfer the vision from the heart, from the vision in the mind's eye, into a vision that's actually in reality. Once confidence has taken one through the initial three stages, building them properly, it is left for the eyes, for one's physical power of sight, to sanctify reality. As in the command, this you shall see and sanctify, discussed above, making it holy for God. So this is the final stage in which the vision is transferred. Everybody's falling out. I don't know what's going on. Why are they being dropped from the class? But in any case, this is the final stage in which the vision moves from within to without. It becomes a reality outside. In halacha, one can use sight to acquire an object. So eyesight has a strong impact on reality in the same way that pulling something is a manner of acquisition. Pulling something, when you pull something, it's like transferring the ownership on it. So really, in the same way that you can do this by pulling and taking something into your possession, you can actually do that with your eyes also. Ani be'emtza shiur. Ani be'emtza shiur. In this way, one pulls reality into the possession of holiness, where everything is very, very good in practice. And this is the thing that a person has to do in order to be able to sanctify reality. It's like you're looking at reality and taking it into your possession, taking it in. So on the one hand, you're transferring your vision out. On the other hand, by looking at things, really what you're doing is you're taking possession of them. And here, possession means you're sanctifying it. This is the secret of Rabbi Akiva, who entered the Pardes in peace and departed it in peace. The Pardes represents the vision of a rectified reality. That's what he had inside. And Rabbi Akiva entered this vision in order to pull the unrectified reality below into the higher sanctified reality above. So to say it another way, this is something that you can actually see people doing, is that they look at reality and they use their eyesight to try to sanctify things, meaning to see them in their higher source. It's like pulling it up. It's like really lifting things up. So again, there are two motions that are going on here. One is passive in a certain sense, and one is more active. The passive action that we do is looking at things. It's a passive act in the sense that we're looking to find the vision that we've been working on in reality. We're looking to see that. On the other hand, there's an active element to this, and the active element is when we look at reality and we try to sanctify it, and we try to pull it up. It's not just to bring out what I had inside me, it's also to lift and elevate reality from where it is now to a higher place. Mm-hmm. And that's what Rabbi Akiva did when he entered the Pardes. That's the idea here. The sages say that the verse, "Pull me after you, we shall run," describes Rabbi Akiva's ascent and descent from the Pardes. Meaning that when Rabbi Akiva went into the Pardes, into the orchard, that was like pulling reality up with him into where he was. It's called Mashcheni. Mashcheni means pull me. So reality is like saying, pull me up. Acharecha narutza. And then reality is sanctified and it can join the divine soul in pursuing godliness. The reality itself. So I want to just give an example of how this is done because sometimes it can sound very how shall I say? It can sound like something very mystical, or very hard to approach, or very hard to connect to. But really, it's almost the same thing as looking with a good eye at what you're seeing, as looking at things in a way that they show positively, and you try to see the positive in them. The person who was most into this, maybe out of everybody, at least wrote about it, was Reb Nachman. And he writes that when you force yourself to see a good point in something, then you elevate everything with it. That good point that you reveal, it elevates everything. And so you have to always come with a positive eye to things and see the progress, see the goodness that's happened, see how things have moved forward. That's part of our work in conscious determination. It's part of our duty, is to look for how progress has been made, not to look at the faults. There will always be certain faults there. It will never be exactly what I wanted, but the progress occurs. The progress happens, and when you see that, says Reb Nachman, when you find that little place that you can hook onto, then you can pull everything up. But if you can't find it, if you can't find that place where everything should be, if you only want it all to be perfect already, then you have nowhere to pull it up from. You have to find that place, that hinge that you can latch onto and that you can pull everything up. So seeing that, and then I've actually seen, there's certain Rebbes that I have in mind that I used to not understand what they were doing, but after I learned this from Rav Ginsburg, so it seemed to me very indicative of the same thing, that when they look at you afterwards, I'm not going to be able to do this exactly with my eyes, but it's almost like they roll their eyes backwards. So it's like, and having seen it and then having learned this, I understood that perhaps what they're doing is they're physically lifting things up, meaning that by pulling their eyes up, it's like they're elevating everything at the same time. It's like whatever my eyes are looking at, I'm elevating it physically. I don't think that the physical action is again what does it, but the physical action is like a sign for what's happening inside them, that they're trying to elevate things. So like rolling their eyes up and back is like mimicking in the same way that when you give tzedakah, so Hashem gives to you. because by doing the physical action you awaken something above. So I think that what they were doing is they were trying to create a physical action that would have the same effect above. So if they're pulling their eyes up, like lifting what they're looking at, so at the same time all of reality spiritually is also being lifted up and becoming sanctified. So that's one aspect of it, of opening the eyes. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we're done with the 4 stages of conscious determination. I just want to make sure, because in English it's not so clear that we're done. Let me just make sure. Yes. Okay. So we're done with conscious determination. And what we're going to look at now, so there really should be some kind of sign here that we're done with conscious determination. What we're going to look at now in this class is a lot more about how the future is what we are bringing into reality. That really what we're doing is we're taking from the future and bringing it into here. So it's not just seeing the good in the present. It's also that this whole process is really about seeing the goodness in the future, the goodness that will come. And this is related to the very basic notion that we'll see now. We've talked about it many times, now we'll just see it in writing, that by its very essence, faith is linked to the future. Faith is about the future. So I gave all kinds of explanations of this over the different classes that we've had. One of them was, for instance, that a man of faith is somebody who lives beyond the present, who can see something beyond the present. Because all the faith that we have, like in the Shema, is that Hashem, who we believe in now, will eventually be believed in by all the peoples of the earth. Meaning that when we say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, it's almost like you're saying Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Yihiyeh Echad. That Hashem will be one. Like we say, Bayom Hu Yeh Hashem Echad U'Shmo Echad. And that day God will be one and His name will be one. So we're looking at the future in that sense. Abraham, when he believed in Hashem, and Hashem told him, I'll give you the land and I'll give you children and so on, his faith was strong because he was able to connect with the good future beyond what he was seeing in the present. So the present didn't look so great, but he was connected to the good future. And that is the staple of a man of faith, that he's always connected to the future in his let's call it, in his continence, in what makes up his psyche. His psyche is constantly focused on the future. It's not that he doesn't live in the present. Of course he also lives in the present. But the point is that his optimism, his constant state of being in joy, like for instance on Sukkos. And the Sukkos is a celebration of the future, really. It's not really a celebration of the present. In fact, you could say in a certain sense that Sukkot takes the present and says, well, the present's all good and nice, but the reason that the present is good is in order to allow me to focus on the future. That really, whenever things are good, my focus should be, this allows me to think about something higher even than the present. So agriculturally, Sukkot is at the end of the harvest. So in a certain sense, people's houses were full and they had everything they needed and so on. And then suddenly, you come and you say, but really, I'm looking for more than this. I'm really looking for something higher. What's the higher thing? The higher state is when everybody, the entire world will realize that God is one. That's what I'm really looking at. That's really what Sukkot is about. It's a universal celebration of all the nations of the world coming to Yerushalayim and declaring that God is one. That's all. Just throwing away all the idolatry, all the false beliefs, all the false fears, and so on, and coming just to fear God, just to love Hashem. That is really the proclamation. That's the feeling of, even though the present is good, the future is going to be even better. So here's how it's written here. Faith hovers in the pure air. This is called a viradakia. The pure air that is above the head. It's as if above our head there's something hovering all the time. What's hovering there? Our faith. This is where the oil upon your head is constantly poured. And that's the image that we've talked about from the Zohar in Balak. And it's the image that opens the second part of the first part of the Tanya in chapter 35. Shemen al roshcha lo yachsar. Oil should never be lacking upon your head. What does this verse mean? And then he gets into the whole explanation of what this verse means. The idea here is that fire cannot burn without air. The fire of the heart can't burn without there being some oxygen, some air. So really, if you want to experience, feel your heart burning, you have to have this oil above your head, in the air, in the pure air above your head. To say it in another way, that the fire is not just burning in your heart. Really, it's burning above. The oil is there, and you have some wick, and the reason that it's burning is because there's air there. Now, this air is obviously a symbol. It's not that really, the air above your head has to remain free from, and there has to be enough oxygen there. It's a symbol for something. So let's see, what does this stand for? Fire cannot burn without air, oxygen. A secret alluded to in the Hebrew word for fire, where the shin stands for the essential fire. Shin is the main letter of Eish, of fire. But the aleph stands for the essential air, avir. Avir starts with an aleph that goes with it, as brought in the book of formation. This is the candle of the soul described in the verse. The candle of God is man's soul. So even though it's burning, as it were, the soul is burning, as it were, inside the heart, really its place, the place that the soul is above the head. And there, the way to understand is like that the body, the entire body is the wick. The oil is the faith that keeps coming down, or as he explains in the Tanya, it can also be the mitzvos that the person is doing, the commandments that he's doing. That's the fuel. And when all of this is functioning together, then really that's when the flame can be lit. That there is the wick, there is the body, there is the mitzvos, the commandments that the person is doing, and then the fire above is the soul burning. What we have seen is that the main purpose of confidence is to draw down from the future to come, from the future into the deterministic present. The future is open-ended. The present is determined. The future, in essence, cannot be known because it is the secret of the 5 doubts found in the unknowable head itself. Certainty is determined by free will. The secret of the name Kacha, initials of the crown of all crowns, is explained by the Arizal and the Baal Shem Tov. And confidence acts to draw faith in the good tomorrow into today. Okay, so this was a big mouthful, so we have to take this apart a little. The place that's above the head has a lot of representation in the Arizal's Kabbalah. One of the things that that the Arizal explains about the space above the head is that it's like beyond the crown. It's a place in the crown that can't be completely contained. It can't be enclosed within limits. And one of the things that happens when there are no limits is that things become open-ended. So this we have to understand. What does it mean that it's open-ended? The Arizal uses an incredible word to describe the open-ended nature of the crown above the head. Again, there's a crown that's in the head, which is contained, and it's symbolized by the skull. Okay? That's one thing. But there's the crown that's above the head, and the crown that's above the head, which is something entirely different. It's called the unknowable head. It cannot be known fully. Like the future, which is unknown to us, that we can't fully determine. So the unknowable head, the crown that's above the skull, being unended, is described by the Arizal with an incredible word that when you hear it, it's almost like, how did you know that we were going to go in this direction? Because the Arizal, as far as I know, I don't think I've ever seen this written, he didn't ever draw the connection between Amalek and Safek, between Amalek and doubt. And yet when the Arizal describes the crown above the head, he says there are 5 doubts there. 5 things that are always in doubt. You can never know how they fall, whether they're like this or like that, or anything in between. That's the state of the crown above the head, the Ghatla, the unknowable head, the highest part of the crown. In that place, there is doubt, but it's holy doubt. It's not the doubt of Amalek. Really, Amalek, doubt as we know it in the heart, feeds upon the unknowability of the future, the open-endedness of the future. And then instead of convincing you that the future is good, that the future in the long run is good, and even in the short term it should be good, you fall into this place because of Amalek where you doubt that, and you begin to picture the future as something negative, and that's something you have to constantly battle against. You have to have some, let's call it, experience with this to believe that the future is going to turn out okay. You have to have gone through this once or twice in your life, or 3 times or 4 times. I think after 100 times you sort of get the idea that it'll work out. It's hard to believe it, and certain things don't seem to work out. They seem to get worse. But that's exactly where the doubt gnaws at you. And it wants you to believe that somehow this is not going to work out. But it's not true, it will. In some way it all resolves. And not just resolves, but it actually, the longer term you take, the more it becomes good. So to say things, again, it depends on what you want out of life. But when a person wants his life to be meaningful, so the meaning gets better all the time. There's more meaning to it. Why is there more meaning to it? Because you merit to have done much more. Even just spending time in this world is part of the fulfillment of your mission. It gives meaning to what you've done. Again, the doubt will gnaw at you, and the doubt will say, what good did you get from the last year? Let's say a person comes to the end of the year and he says, so what happened? Nothing happened. It's not true. You did many, many things this year. Even if you were limited by all kinds of problems in the world, in your own life, whatever it was, still you merited to do a lot of things. And these things have tremendous meaning, both for you and for those around you. It's only the doubt that convinces you otherwise, that somehow this was not meaningful. So meaning and faith in this sense are very close. That when I say I have faith, and the faith is above my skull, it's above my head, it's the crown above the crown. What I'm saying is that this is all getting better. There's more and more meaning to it. So in the short term, it may look difficult. In the midterm, it'll work out. In the long term, it's all good completely. It's all leading to a very good place. That's the essence of confidence, is taking faith. If I have faith burning above, and faith again is the faith that I have that the future is good, and drawing it down into the heart so that it becomes a staple of my life, so that it imbues everything that I do with meaning and with faith, with a feeling that this is going in a good direction. That's what it means for the soul to burn. That's really the meaning. It means that's why we enjoy being around people that give us that feeling. That they give us the feeling that things are moving. They're advancing, they're progressing. How are they progressing? In what sense? That we've done something. We've merited to be here. We've merited to do things for others. And that has meaning. So that, what he says here, that's the fire that burns above a person's skull, above our head. And that's where we take the future from. So again, faith hovers. And what we have seen is that the main purpose of confidence is to draw it down from the future to come, meaning from the faith into the deterministic present. It's another way of looking at the same process we talked about last week, except it's more active. Last week we talked about there comes a moment when you have to take things out, when you've seen as much as you can in your vision of faith, and now it's time to bring things out. So we're having a lot of, so that's the first aspect. The second aspect, what we looked at today, is that by looking at things, we're actually elevating them. And elevating them means that the more you have faith, the stronger the soul burning above your head is, the more you have the power to lift things just with your eyesight. And again, the confidence here is critical, because the confidence, what it's doing is it's taking from the power of faith that you have above your head and transforming that into the power to sanctify reality by looking at it. The amazing thing is that we're taking an open-ended reality and turning it into a deterministic one. We're taking things that are open. We do this anyway. whether we involve faith or not, as it were, we do this anyway. So there's a certain level of faith that we have naturally that comes into our lives completely naturally anyway. Every time that we have a purpose that we pursue, we actually have some faith that thing is possible. So we're taking an uncertain reality and turning it into a certain one, into a determined one. And that was the secret of what the Baal Shem Tov here he explains, to make the faith into something that stands, as we saw from the Friediger Rebbe, that the idea is to take down from that faith, which is a power in and of itself, in order to bring the future into the present. And that's called conscious determination, like we explained. That's the process of determining, because we have free will, because the future is open-ended, it allows us to act. A human being is like a machine that takes the future, which is open-ended, and transforms it into the present, and makes it into a certain present, into a certain reality. And that's like what we do. That's our role as human beings. You could almost say that that's why consciousness is seated between the future and the past. Our consciousness is in the present moment, because the present moment is where we make the determination. That's where we fashion reality. We give it a form. We fashion it in a certain way. But what we're taking from is the future that's as the way we feel, like it's in front of us, and we take from that and we bring it into the present and transform that into something that's positive, into something that's certain. So another way of saying this is confidence acts to draw faith in the good tomorrow, or from the good tomorrow, but I have faith in that good tomorrow into today, into the present moment. The same is to be understood regarding the statement made by the Mashiach to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. When Rabbi Yeshua asked him when he is coming, the Mashiach responded, today. So today is a generic statement. You're supposed to take from the future and move it into today. All this depends on the ability to firmly cling to the point of faith, expanding it into a picture like we saw, the vision of faith, and then drawing it down into the will, to the intellect, until it finally becomes physical sight, as we explained in the process of conscious determination. Okay, the next topic is big in and of itself, so I don't want to start it today. Everybody's having some connection problems, so I don't know why Javi can't even get in, and Dina's in the end watching on Facebook because for some reason the Zoom's not working so well for her. Oh. So we'll keep it short today. There's also a lot of things to do, and God willing, I very much hope that we can continue this. It'll be actually a very good time to continue it next week during Sukkot, and hopefully we can do this on Monday. So this is a shorter class. Again, the time between Yom Kippur and Sukkot is kind of tight. So thanks for joining, and have a Chag Sameach, and we should see each other in good health and in good spirits, and everything should be good for everybody. All the best.